No, for a long time I thought perhaps that there might have been a mistake. You ever see the movie when Mel Brooks made the History of the World?
Yes.
And he showed Moses coming down the mountain with tablets, and he said, "We have 15 commandments," and he dropped one of them. We have 10 commandments. Well, what we've done is to piece together the third tablet.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
And it's contemporized, and you know it's really modern. But I wanted to share the third tablet this evening. In other words, 5 more commandments. Now, out of deference to the commandments, we're going to call them commandments. M-I-N-T-S. Commandments. Okay. And a mint, I looked up in the dictionary today, and one of the definitions of a mint is that it's an idea that can be fruitful and forward-moving. Okay, and so this is a commandment. And so I don't know if the camera can pick up on this or not, but we had some artwork done. And I'm going to go through these, and at the same time we're going to offer them to anyone who wants to call in. And by the way, we might as well put that number down now and get it out of the way. This is Life Talk, and it's 1-800-661-3490. So it's going to be kind of peeking out at everybody during the show so they can call if they like. But the third tablet, 5 more commandments. And number 11, it's going to start with number 11, of course, is thou shalt regularly acknowledge and celebrate your capacities. Too few of us, I think, are constantly aware, even daily, let alone moment to moment, of the incredible capacities that have been given us by God, a creator, nature, or circumstance, however the individual viewer perceives that. In other words, it's the same no matter how you look at it. Incredible capacities. 115 billion brain cells electrochemically connected. That gives us a number of potential synapses, which are points of understanding, wisdom, or skills, equal to the number of droplets of water and grains of sand on the planet. I mean, it's incredible.
It's absolutely amazing.
Just Sunday, I was watching a TV show on the learning revolution, and some physicist in England has taken the trouble to compute the number of synapses potentially in the human brain. And it's 1, written in 12-point, you know, a Courier typewriter letter. 1 with 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and those are zeros extending out, Gina, 9.5 million miles.
You're kidding.
How can we take what's inside our cranium for granted? It's just incredible.
I'm sorry, forgive me, but I was thinking when you first mentioned the 11th commandment that what we tend to do instead of celebrate our capacity is regularly say how limited we are or how inadequate we are and confirm to others our limitations and our weaknesses
and to let's go into the physical realm too.
Yes.
To actually celebrate, to acknowledge the capacities and the fact that we can walk and talk and see and hear and smell and taste. We have the senses, and then of course we can remember and we can imagine and we can dream and we can make choices and decisions. I mean, what power is in there?
Yes.
It's just incredible. And for each person to exercise that and to celebrate it appropriately would give us, I mean, huge results as a communal society. It's incredible. Number 11, thou shalt regularly acknowledge and celebrate your capacities.
Now, what are some ways to do that, Burns, specifically?
Oh, I think just verbally. Just stop for a moment and think. I mean, make it a wow. When you get up in the morning, the mere fact that you don't have a chalk line around your body is a great start. You know what I mean? At least you're alive and you have a day in front of you to make contribution, to think, to read, to expand. And what if we're not careful, see, if we don't acknowledge and celebrate them, we don't utilize them. We tend to go back on what we've already done. See, we've talked about a lot of these things in the shows before, and this was just a way of pulling it all together. That functionally, we stay almost in an unconscious state doing what we've done before.
That's what I was thinking, that unless we specifically set some actions for ourselves that will fall into the habit of, oh, someone gives you a compliment, and we always say, oh, no, no.
Yeah, and so they don't do it anymore.
Right.
We've questioned their intelligence.
And we don't get the benefit of accepting that and validating that maybe that is part of who we are.
And if we celebrate our capacities, then we have a propensity to celebrate someone else's, to acknowledge that this is a very special human being here. How can there be non-people in our lives when everyone we encounter we get brain conscious, recognizing what's inside that cranium, and to celebrate its possibilities? That's pretty exciting. And we go on to number 12. Thou shalt accept the authorities that have been bestowed upon you. Huge amount of authorities. The mere fact that we can think and reason and make choices gives us an incredible authority. It's amazing. Historically, I think too often there's been a tendency for us to delegate responsibility. You ever heard that phrase? Delegation of responsibility, which is an impossibility. So you can't delegate responsibilities. Have you ever been delegated a responsibility where you didn't have the attending authority?
Right.
You're going to look bad. You're going to be inadequate.
What.
And no matter what,
Yeah.
you're going to look bad.
Yeah.
And there's a tendency for us to attempt to do that. And it's one of those semantical faux pas. It just can't be done. But to accept the authorities that have been bestowed upon us instead of relinquishing and delegating. You remember back in Command Commission, we talked about how we've taken our authority and negotiated it and delegated it and relegated it and sublimated and subjugated. And then as children, of course, it was subrogated and eliminated from us.
Yes,
And boy,
yes.
we're a shell of what we otherwise could be. But if we can just a little bit at a time say, hey, I'm in command of the direction my life is taking. This is my gift. These are the choices that I make, and this is the direction that I'm going. But to do that, you have to accept your authority. That's number 12. Number 13, commandment number 13, thou shalt assume, say, the responsibilities that attend all authorities. You see, once the authority has been recognized and honored, then attending that is the assumption of the responsibility that goes with all authority. Typically what I find is our tendency to pass that back to the source. So many times I think in people's prayers they say, give me help, give me strength. You know what I mean? It's kind of like they're denying that they have any, that I'm helpless without you. And I would think that the delegator of the authority would say, oh my, no, you've got all you need. It's kind of like we've
Make
talked.
good use of it, huh?
Yeah, and we've talked in the past about the court uiop of God bless you. The implication being, if I say that to you, God bless you, Gina, is that he may not have already.
Yeah.
You know, or that by my saying it, you've got some extra special gift. I'm saying God has blessed you if you're going to call upon that entity. You know what I mean? And then you're left with, oh, how? With authority, with capacity, and so now it's your turn to assume the responsibility that attends all of that,
Well,
and to
seems
do
like
something with someone and for someone with it.
A lot of times we want the authority, but we don't want the responsibility that goes along with it. So we are irresponsible, and then we make poor choices,
So that makes it
and
pretty
we
strong.
blame it on someone else.
So that makes a pretty strong admonition.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Number 14, thou shalt devote portions of each day, exhibiting your gratitude for the courtesies and kindnesses that occur. Do you remember when we talked about that? A thank you note a day.
Yes.
And those, if you write a thank you note a day and you know you're going to, you start looking out at your world for things to be grateful for, and you find them in abundance.
And
We talked about sometime how after why you get overwhelmed, there's too many thank you notes to write. And that's a different world to live in than one where you're cautious and frightened, apprehensive, and even fearful.
I have to tell you, Bern, that I have been doing that.
Oh,
Writing
wonderful.
thank you notes. And as a matter of fact, a coworker, actually it was a superior of mine, I wrote him a thank you note recently, and he made special mention of it several weeks later. And he said, I've been keeping it in my drawer and I read it every day.
That's fascinating, isn't it?
And this, yeah, it was
Precious gift.
amazing.
We can do so much with so little time, so little effort. Good for you. Are you working at sending one per day, or is it kind of a spontaneous, when you think about it type thing? I mean, let's be honest here.
It's more spontaneous. Sometimes I'll send 4 or 5 a day, and then other days I won't. And you had said that it's very important to send one every day so that you stay in the habit of being grateful. And I would agree with you. Having been more sporadic, I know that the days that I do, there's a whole shift in how I think and feel. And the days I don't, there tends to be less awareness of the things that I should be
It's kind
grateful
of like exercising. You miss a day,
Yeah.
and the old habit can begin to creep up on you.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's great. I'm so glad you're doing
Yeah.
that. A lot of people won't acknowledge that they received them because they don't know how to exactly. And we can't follow up typically and say, did you get my thank you note?
Right.
And so we send them out in the world and hope for the best for the people that receive them.
Just give it as a gift and not worry about the results.
That's neat. Yeah, I send one almost every day. I've gone through the exercise in such a long time for such a long time that I do get sporadic myself occasionally. But I do send a lot of them. But thou shalt devote portions of each day exhibiting your gratitude for the courtesies and kindnesses that occur, and forgiving yourself and others for past and current inappropriateness. I believe in the last few shows we talked in the Command Commission about the necessity of forgiving and how to do that effectively. And frankly, we've had a lot of phone calls, people saying, I've never heard this before, I appreciate it, they want the tapes and what have you, and certainly we're going to assist them in every way we can to capture the technique, which is quite unique, but to forgive every day. You know, we talked about the facets of love here some time ago,
yes,
about courtesy and kindness and patience and what have you, and we have to recall that you will never be as courteous as you otherwise might be, could be, or perhaps should be, nor will you be as kind as you might be, could be, should be, or as patient, or as humble, or as genuine, without guile, unless you forgive every day. In other words, forgiveness is the one way of, frankly, recapturing our authority. See, because if we have things to forgive, that means we've lost some of the authority over our perceptions.
Someone else has power over how we think or feel.
Exactly. And that's how to get it back. And so then we go on to commandment number 15. Thou shalt wander about, wander through, and ponder over anything and everything that will expand your awareness, while purposely practicing a personal skill that will enhance and enrich your life and those around you. Well, let's go back and kind of review that.
That's a lot to say.
Yeah. To wonder turns the heads of more angels than a plea. And it was just to wonder about things, not taking things at face value, not drawing conclusions or saying, well, if that's the way it is, that's the way it is. You know, typically in our country, if something works, leave it alone. Don't try to fix it. And I'm saying that if something works, to always look further to see maybe if it can work better. To not stop thinking. There's so many times when if you keep thinking, there's other answers on the other side. I know we've done a lot of interviews. I'll give you a classic that we've never discussed. We did a socioeconomic review in doing research for the book and for the series that we do. And as a matter of fact, one time we call it a job relationship analysis, then a socioeconomic review, and then one time even an entertainment analysis. And we were asking people if they really enjoyed what they were doing for a living, especially if they became financially independent, when they returned from vacation, would they go back to their regular job? And frankly, 87.5% of the people said no. In fact, some of them were even more specific than that. But anyway, when we asked them what they would do if they were given a choice, if education, age, time, money had no part of the process, what would they want to do if they could do anything? Some of them got tears in their eyes. They'd lost that dream a long time ago. But if we sat there patiently, they would come up with something. And Gina, it was wonderful that we began to realize that every single person, when given the option, wants to make a contribution. As they want to make a contribution to their family, to their community, to the country, something. Now, that's good news. But by continuing the interviews, by continuing to wonder and to watch this, there was something else that occurred on the other side.
Really?
After doing 20,000 interviews, it became apparent that if the people we had interviewed lived in the same community, that the needs of the community would have been served. So isn't that fascinating?
What are you saying, Bern?
Okay.
Let's back off and look at this, because I think there's something here that we don't want to pass over.
Yeah, there's a dentist that had always been interested in being a garbage man. Not riding the back of the truck, but being in charge of that process for the community. Homemakers that wanted to be plumbers. Plumbers who wanted to be doctors. I mean, in other words, people who wanted to do something special. And what I'm saying is that when we put it all together, the needs of a community would be served. How would you like to live in a place where everyone was doing what made their heart sing? That'd be utopia, Eden. And maybe that was the original intention. Maybe somehow in our struggle for survival, socioeconomic conditions, what have you, we've surrendered our pulse beat. You know what I mean? No, we've lost it, and so we're doing things that we're really not into, and so everyone is shortchanged. It's really kind of fascinating. It's pretty evident that everyone has a psychoscope, a sense of direction for their life that most people are violating. They're in resistance to it. I remember years ago I saw Alan Funt on Candid Camera. It was a delightful show where they had this really nice-looking blonde outside of a hotel with a whole bunch of baggage. And she would ask male passersby to assist her with her luggage. And she was hard to say no to, okay? But anyway, my car's right around the corner. If you don't mind taking this bag, I'll get the rest. And so these guys would pick it up, and it was manageable. And they'd be walking along, and there was a gyroscope inside, set to go straight forward. And so when they got to the corner, she'd turn, go to her car, and they would stand on the corner struggling with that suitcase, trying to get it around the corner, okay? In other words, it was the impact of the gyroscope and the effect it's had on our life and what have you. It's kind of like if we get in conflict with our, what I call psychoscope, then we're not going to be as fulfilled as we otherwise might be. And so that's what I mean by wondering about, going through to the other side. We never would have found that with 1,200 interviews. See, most research is done with 1,200 interviews, and then they permute up, and within 5 or 10%. Well, we've done about 20,000 interviews and found another story on the other side we never would have had with 1,200. Follow what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
And that's my point. Keep looking, keep wondering. I have a thing about wondering, by the way. I think we have time. I've always been one to wonder, okay? And when you wonder, sometimes answers come from the strangest places. I was inspired as a young man on that New Hampshire farm that we've talked about in the past. I don't know if I've ever told you this or not before, but I was sitting playing Pachisi one night with my father, and there was an electrical storm. I mean, really blasting itself around us. And I was a little apprehensive and uncomfortable about it because these barbs of lightning would come down, and then there'd be explosive sounds, and boy, it was disorienting. And I said, Daddy, what would happen if lightning hit that post that we dug and planted today? You know, and he said, oh, I have no idea. He said, you probably split it, or maybe set it on fire, or shatter it. Depends upon the, you know. And he didn't have a specific answer. And it's like someone up there heard me, because in a few moments, I saw it. That thing was gone. Yeah, I mean, it's like, and there was a smoking hole in the ground. It really got nailed. And I remember wondering at the time, what would have happened if I'd have said, Daddy, what would happen if lightning struck me? I'm always glad I didn't ask that question. So you have to be careful what you wonder about, Tina. That's my point.
That's a very fascinating story.
Anyway, thou shalt wonder about, wander through. In other words, wander through and ponder over anything and everything. I mean, don't take anything on face value. You know, most of what we believed in the past has turned out to be a lie when you stop and think about it. And to say that we know this to be a certain truth is a very dangerous position to take.
Certainly inadequate, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Just keep wondering, looking, examining, testing, examining. Thou shalt wonder about, wander through, and ponder over anything and everything that will expand your awareness. I mean, you got all these cells up here. I mean, just keep learning. Expand the awareness while purposely. Now, purposely has love attached to it. Preparation and contribution. Purposely practicing. Remember practicing. Another word. Practicing means that it's okay to be clumsy, inept and inadequate, and ineffective, and sometimes even inappropriate. But if you're practicing, you're moving to the improbable, taking on new risk and responsibilities. Practicing a personal skill, some personal skill that will enhance and enrich your life and all those around you. You see, I would ask everybody, what are you practicing? What little segment of your life are you focused on every day, reaching for excellence? Too few of us are doing that. Too few people. It's kind of like, can you imagine the focus and the practicing and the purposefulness that a young Olympic skater would have?
Absolutely.
7 and 8 hours a day,
Absolutely.
practicing, exposing themselves to win a gold medal. Why wouldn't we do something comparable to win a life? Peace of mind, a sense of security and happiness. Or some facet of our life to be practicing, practicing, and practicing that enriches and enhances. Now, it's got to do both. You know, it's to enhance, to broaden, to expand our life, and to enrich it in every imaginable way, and those around us. Anyway, 5 more commandments. 5 more commandments that I don't think it would hurt at all to kind of focus in on them. And certainly they're contemporary. They're as modern today as they might have been 2,000 years ago, because that's what it was all about. No, I had some fun putting that together. And I don't know if there's a 4th tablet or not. Yeah, there could be.
Well, we need to continue to wonder about that and wander around and
that's right.
explore the possibilities.
What I'd like to do, I'll tell you, this is on a sturdy stock, and a fellow by the name of Perry Majika did my artwork, and I went down and had this all laid out. And so if anyone would like one of these to stick up on their bulletin board and remind them of these things. And by the way, can you imagine if someone really honored these commandments every single day, how it might possibly affect their life?
I think it would be incredible.
Could it be negative? There's no way in the world. There's no way in the world. And by the way, you know, keeping the 10 sometimes is troubling and challenging. Can you see where if you kept these, those would be easier?
Would be taken care of almost.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
absolutely.
those would be easier because now we're conscious and we're using our gifts and our capacities and exercising them effectively. Yeah, I think it'd make quite a difference.
Bern, I'd like to go back to something I asked you about earlier in the show. What are some specific things we can do to start living these commandments? What are some actions that we can take daily or some awareness that we can create in our life? Besides, I mean, we've explained them, we're familiar with the ideas here. How can we put those into practice, and how have you done that in your life? Or have there been people who've come to you and said, Bern, I love the 11 through 15 commandments, and this is what I've done. Do you have any anecdotes? Or
Only this, that to think and to write. And if you think without writing, you're probably not thinking.
certainly it goes in and out.
Here's
very
what
quickly.
happens. To start thinking means to segment a little portion of our life and to predeterminedly think through that period of time. Because if we don't do that, we're not thinking. This malaise of thought that we experience all day long is not thinking. See, most people who think they're thinking aren't thinking at all.
Like chewing gum?
Yeah. You know, what it is, it's a malaise of thought
Yeah.
that's created by the subconscious mind spewing electrochemicals into the brain to be interpreted, which keeps you busy.
Yeah.
Okay? And that's the way it maintains the status quo. And so to stop that,
But you don't have authority over that.
oh yes you do.
I mean, you're not exercising your authority if you're just allowing it to continue.
Yeah,
that way.
you're not exercising your authority when
Yeah.
you allow that to happen.
Right.
And so the only way to begin to capitalize on some of this is to get precognitive, predeterminedly going into peak experiences. Now, a peak experience is where you predetermine what you're about to do, what you're about to think about, okay? Predetermine, evaluate the effect that's going to have on the outcome that you wish, because there doesn't need to be a lot of surprises. In fact, there aren't any. If you don't function, you know what's going to happen. If you do, you're pretty assured of what's going to happen. But predetermine, evaluate, and act on some of these things, knowing it's the right thing to have done. In order to get started, how can we celebrate capacities we're not conscious of? How can we get conscious of them unless we think about it and write them down? So you got to write. Because when you write, there's something magical that happens on the end of a pen. It's like an idea, a concept, a thought is speared like a silvery fish, that if you don't spear it, it's going to slither away and never come back, not even on another day. And so the more we write, as we keep a journal. I mean, I have never known anyone who kept a journal whose life did not work better than those who didn't. Never. I mean, that's fascinating when you think about
It
it.
really is.
If you know you're going to write a journal entry tonight, that's going to affect your day and how you think during the day. There's no question. After a while, I'll tell you, you get so much authority that you can write your journal entry in the morning and make it that kind of a day. Because we have that much authority.
Now that's a great idea.
Yes, we
To
have. You can do
pre-write your day.
that. Pre-write your day.
And then you have to. Then you know when you come back that night and read your journal that you
You
have
made
to.
it work. You made it work. Absolutely.
That you're accountable for what's
Yeah.
in there.
See, this have a nice day doesn't happen.
Right.
People say, have a nice day, and I'll say, thank you, I will. Sometimes they look at me and say, how did you know? Well, I decided a long time ago this was going to be a good day.
Right.
Because I know I have the capacity to influence that. This is why oftentimes at the end of our shows we'll say, hey, go and make it a nice day for someone. And that way 2 people would have had a nice day. 2 lives would have been enriched, enlivened, and enhanced. And there's no question. That's what this is about, is get predeterminate.
Choosing beforehand.
That's right. Thou shalt accept the authorities that have been bestowed upon you. How are you going to know what they are if you don't sit down and think about it and write them down? We have the authority, no question. The power of choice, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, we are not victims. We've been given so much authority over the direction our life is taking. It's whether we understand that or not that makes a difference. And whether we accept the authority that's implied in that or not that makes a difference.
And it's a little scary, too, at the outset.
Of course.
Because then you have to answer to yourself for it. You
Yes,
can't
yes.
point the finger except this direction.
Well, they say,
That's a
well,
scary thought.
3 fingers
but
pointing
also
back at you.
incredibly powerful. And Bern, it's amazing to say this, but we're almost to the end of another program.
I know,
so
it goes so
perhaps we
quickly.
could flash that number on the screen again if people want to get a copy of the next 5 commandments and start applying them in our lives. And it would be great also to get feedback from our audience, from our viewing audience,
Yeah,
how
and there's
these
a
make
tape,
a change.
too. There will
yeah.
be a tape on this show, of course, that we can pull off the video. And all we need is a name and an address and a phone number. And I had 2 delightful people call Sunday. It was such a nice visit. And certainly I think we'll be communicating a lot more in the future.